Carry on.
Welcome to Respect the Atypicals podcast. I'm Jada Sims, and here with me are my co-hosts, Deasia Brody and Maya Smith. In today's episode, we will be discussing ableism and its display in the media. So we're going to get right into it.
Well, when you first think about ableism or disability, most people automatically think about a wheelchair. But ableism is simply discrimination against a person with a physical or intellectual disability. It can be mental or physical, like being paralyzed, needing a wheelchair, or something like epilepsy or autism.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, they do think it's a serious problem in our world today. There are so many people being bullied and shamed because of it. Workers are being mistreated and underpaid, and these people already having the struggles in life and challenges. And you can truly give them a reason to say that they are treated unfairly in this world.
Exactly. So we're going to talk about ableism in the media, like Instagram, Snapchat, TV shows, all that, and how it's displayed. And we're going to discuss some inspirational influencers standing up for ableism. Our first question to cover is, are people with disabilities commonly shown in shows, music videos, talk shows, etc.? How are they represented? And why are more autistic people coming up in shows?
Well, there are a lot of popular shows that display and explain ableism, especially autism. Shows like The Good Doctor, Atypical, and Sesame Street have main characters that have such disabilities. And of course, there are some movies and shows that try to incorporate ableism, but it's mostly for the producer's benefit. Other types of media really try to give people insight on what it's like for these people with disabilities to grow up and live life.
So, how do these individuals show us as watchers watch their actual life is like, and not something that's stereotyped?
Well, in Atypical, Sam, who's the main character, has autism. He is extremely smart and very, very in love with Antarctica. He will give out random penguin facts and loves to draw Antarctic creatures in his notebook. He takes lots of notes when he needs advice or needs to do a task. He is also becoming more affectionate. In episode 8 of season 1, he hugged his father, and his father was surprised because Sam hasn't really hugged him that much in his life. Sam has many wonderful traits and abilities, but sometimes things aren't so good. When he gets nervous or stressed out, he'll pick at the back of his hair and recite 5 Antarctic penguin species to calm himself down. He can also be very literal, so sometimes he insults people, but he's really just saying what he thinks. Sometimes when his girlfriend needs cheering up, Sam has a hard time because he doesn't really understand sympathy and emotions. He's also very sensitive to loud noises and lights and repetitive sounds. Something like a prom or a spring fling dance can overwhelm him.
Well, sounds very unique, and I feel like Atypical displays a realistic life of somebody with a disability, or in Sam's case, autism. And the fact that he has to recite 5 Arctic penguins, that he picks at the back of his head, that's just some things that people with autism or a disability can't really control. So I'm curious as to how he's in high school and how does he go during his transition to college?
Yes, he is a senior, and in the end of season 2, he graduates. After graduation, he has to say his girlfriend's speech because she lost her voice. When he's saying the speech, he gets some laughs, but they're not in a disrespectful way. They're laughing with him. And in the end, he gets a standing ovation. He goes to college for Arctic art and excels in most of his classes.
That's amazing. Many people with autism are showing people that they can be great too. He made it to college in excellence. Another show that is similar is Good Doctor. The main character, Sean, is an outstanding surgeon. One cool thing about the show is when he is immensely thinking, it shows us his thoughts. We can see images of organs and blood and medical things floating around. We can see how he thinks too. Like he gets nervous breakdowns a lot. And when a new medical surgeon was hired, he felt that he couldn't appeal to emotion, and it was something that was very important as a doctor. He ultimately let him go, and Sean had a huge breakdown. He is crying and shouting, "I am a surgeon," over and over and over. However, as the show progresses, he is a lot better at stretching the truth just a bit to appeal to patients' emotions.
So, as we can see from both of these shows, we get a pretty good understanding of what it's like for someone with autism. Both shows display challenges that they face day to day and how hard it is for them. But then here goes that question. Is that true? Is what they say accurate and a good representation of someone with autism?
Well, Jada, that's a very interesting question because there are so many different types of disabilities and disorders. There are some severe disabilities like vision and hearing impairment or being nonverbal or full body paralyzation. So, yes, for Sam's specific case, it does show adequate accuracy. And for Sean's individual case, yes, it is accurate. But there are so many other cases and situations that don't necessarily compare to what they are going through. And it's not always so positive. In shows, they are commonly showcased as having one very strong suit, like math or drawing, and having an ally or somebody stand up for them. But that's not always true in our world today. Some people do bully people with disabilities, and some people with disabilities struggle a lot in school.
That's
Life
very
isn't always so easy for them as it is sometimes implied.
that's very true. Now let me ask y'all this: why are producers and directors creating shows that accurately display a disability more often?
Well, Maya, I can tell you that there was an interview that David Shore did. He is the creative good doctor. And in that interview, he says that autistic characters aren't new to TV, but the idea of a lead character with autism is rare. He's saying that autism isn't this new and trendy topic added to shows, but it is different because it's mainly about these characters with disabilities. We really get into their lives and see entertainment built around things like autism, people paralyzed, and hardships with real people in their day to day life. Another show on Fox called House about Gregory House, who solves medical mysteries and investigates deaths and health conditions of patients, all while he has an aneurysm in his thigh, making him use a cane 24/7. But he still achieves so much in his medical career. It tells the watchers that a disability is not a limitation, but a part of you that's the inspiration behind many producers. When there are instances like that, it inspires so many people who might feel as if they can't achieve their goals or they think that they can't do what an ableist can.
That is totally right. They don't make these shows for pity and to make everybody sad. They do it so the next time you see someone in a wheelchair, you think they can do anything they want. Speaking of representing people with disabilities, there are a lot of media influencers out here with disabilities.
Yeah, like Kaylin Bennett, the first autistic person to get a D1 scholarship.
Ooh, and an all-time favorite, Leanne Levice, the blogger.
And you can't forget about Annie Sargara. She's a YouTuber and activist for LGBTQIA, disabilities, body positivity, and accessibility rights. She is wheelchair bound, but doesn't let anything stop her. Leanne LaBosse is a blogger for the Art of Autism nonprofit. She also talks about being on the spectrum and the significance of autism acceptance on her Instagram page. Kaylin Bennett is the first basketball player with autism to get a D1 scholarship. He was told that he was never going to walk again, and he was nonverbal until he was 7 years old. But he didn't let any of that get in the way of his dreams. In an interview with Overtime magazine, he says, I embrace who I am, and now I decide my future. These are people just like you and me. They did not let their conditions be all that defined them, and went on to do amazing things. Kaylin will go to college and pay $0 for tuition.
Well, wait, before we get into our next topic, I just think that it's great how these disabled women are, being inspirations, especially since some people are born with disabilities. And I feel like they really inspire kids of a younger age to know that just because you're different than somebody, that shouldn't stop you from doing what you want, from what you're passionate about, from what your goals are in life. And I think it's really great that we have these women to inspire them.
Yeah, they have been bullied and taunted since they were kids, but they don't let any of that stop them. And that is something that is very difficult to do because you have all these people around you with negativity, but you have to be the light of positivity. And they show that.
Okay, on to our next topic. Our final topic will discuss respectfulness towards people with disabilities, bullying, and discrimination.
So basically, this topic it ties into what we just said about how these younger kids who are inspired by these influencers shouldn't feel some type of way because there are people who are going to bully you. People who are quote unquote ableists are also bullied, and overall, you can't really escape bullying. And since they have a disability, I don't think they should down themselves or feel too bad just because they're a bit different.
Yeah, it's really bad for some of them. There are some things that are just common sense. Remarks like, OMG, what happened to your face? Or remarks like, were you in some kind of freak accident? Those are extremely rude. And I'm 100% guaranteed that they wouldn't want things like that said to them. Especially since bullying someone based on their looks or beliefs or culture can affect their self esteem and can even cause them to suffer thinking about suicide.
Yeah, and suicide is nothing you want to be played about with because it's just you hate the thought of having to lose someone because they were taunted about their differences or they were taunted about their cultures or beliefs. And um, did you notice any type of bullying in any of the shows we discussed?
Yes, in Atypical, there was a scene where Sean had gotten his yearbook and people were signing it, just to be polite and such. And he was really excited because he doesn't have that many friends. So things like that really get him excited. So he got more excited and started asking a lot more people to write in his yearbook. Well, some of these people went over to the picture of him and wrote things over his face like spaz and freak and weirdo, and it made him extremely sad. And he did have a nervous breakdown in the storage room closet.
So, one question: do y'all think personally, what is your opinion on discrimination, on basically ableism? What do you feel like people with a disability are discriminated against a lot?
As children, yeah, because like kids don't know everything in the world quite yet, so it's new to them. So they're gonna ask a whole bunch of questions, and they might not even know that it's hurting the other person's feelings. Some of it can be intentional. Some of it is not. But overall, just discriminating. Period. It's just not good.
It really isn't. And in this show on Netflix called Raising Dion, there was a character who had a wheelchair and she got taunted a lot. She sat at lunch by herself. People called her a weirdo and people were embarrassed to be seen with her. The main character, Dion, eventually got upset because he wanted to be cool, but Esperanza wasn't, quote unquote, what they thought was cool. But she ended up saving the day and helping Dion defeat the monster. So they really rise up to the challenge, even though they have disabilities.
Yeah, and I think that when it comes down to shows, since we were talking about Atypical and The Good Doctor, that there are a lot of shows that mainly incorporate somebody with a disability as like the hero and not necessarily showing a good representation of what their everyday life is like. And, people can be so rude, and it's just so crazy how people can be disrespectful. But people like Annie and Kaylin Bennett have shown us that they don't let anything stop them, and that they can block out them haters and just focus on themselves.
Exactly. There is this lady named Judith Human, and she once said that when she was younger, she couldn't go to public school. So the Board of Education sent a teacher to her house for 2.5 hours a week. She wasn't even able to get an adequate education because of something that was not in her control. And it's situations like that where you truly start to realize that overall, life isn't fair and people aren't doing a good job to even come across as being semi fair.
Well, I think that Ableism isn't a curse, and it's important for people of all ages to know that their disability does not affect them. It's a part of their life, and it's something that can't be made fun of, or you can't hold anyone back because they might be a little different. And if anything, a disability could be seen as an advantage, and therefore it should not be treated as such, no matter what.
This concludes our Disabilities in the Media podcast. We would like to thank our hosts and the people who helped us make this, such as Ms. Robinson and Ms. Johnson. And thank you for tuning in to Respect the Atypicals.
The podcast you just heard was made using Anchor. Ever thought about making your own podcast? Anchor makes it really easy for anyone to get started. It's a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing podcasts. Best of all, it's 100% free. Sign up now at anchor.fm/new. That's anchor.fm/new to get started.